All right, David. So I'm gonna make these as quickly as possible for you. Get them on the internet as quickly as possible for you. So if the audio quality is a little subpar, forgive me. I usually edit the audio, but I'm not gonna do that here, so I can get this up to you. First question here is a verb question. Now, the reason that this is the right answer is because every time that we're talking about stories, like, take Crime and Punishment. Raskolnikov, the main character in Crime and Punishment, believes that he can make the world a better place. Even though the story, I've already read it, and the story was written a long time ago, it's always said in the present tense. There's also she brings after vision. So if this, that's another way of talking about it. If this verb were in the past, she brought the past to life by adding commentary after visitors had watched a video. That would make sense. So it's about the parallelism of this verb. 9 times out of 10, when we talk about a story, we're talking about in the present tense, but this is the key word. It doesn't matter that it's after visitors watch, the after here doesn't change the fact that it has to match this verb. She brings the past to life by adding live commentary after visitors watch a movie that describes. So, there's kind of 2 reasons there. I know this word after kind of must have messed you up here. But the video does so sort of forever, right? Whether it's in the past or in the future, the video just perpetually describes something. That's why that answer, the sort of present tense describes, is the right answer on number 6. Okay, let's do the next one here. Let's see, how do I get to the next question? Library, baby photos. Here we go. Here's the next one. Looks like, yes, this is number 16 here. So, let's see if I can give us more space. That's good enough. Okay, so the first thing to talk about here is what each of these words mean. It is. ITS is possessive, belonging to it. So I think I spelled possessive wrong. I think there's 2 S's. Either way. This means they are, and this means a place. So right away I could say, look, if this was there with an IE, which is EI, that's possessive. So if I had 2 possessive answers and 2 contractions, then I wouldn't know which way to go. But because there is, let's clear all this stuff. Because we have a contraction here and a contraction with A, and then we have ITS with no apostrophe, which is possessive. I don't see a world in which this answer is correct, D. But, it's probably just important to be able to tell why each answer, or why the right answer is right here. So, where's the beginning of the sentence? Well, I guess I don't even need to go to the beginning. I can just say, who or what's upgraded capacity and safety standards? Using tax levies, I don't even know. Back early in the sentence, a research team led by this guy studied the efficacy of the new system. So it's the upgraded capacity of the new system. So singular, cross these ones off, and then ITS. Now look, the apostrophe does work with possession in a lot of situations. This is a special situation. Essentially, people who make these kind of rules, Modern Language Association or some group that gets together and sort of makes rules for the language, thought, well, this is confusing if IT apostrophe S means 2 things. So let's use IT apostrophe S to mean the 2 words smashed together into one. It is. And let's let this be possessive. So I have a feeling that you knew that this was possessive. You just picked the wrong one. ITS, no apostrophe. Of course, we use apostrophe S as Jeremy's work. And, Jeremy's hungry. This means Jeremy is hungry. This means Jeremy owns the work. So we do use apostrophe S as two ways. This is a special circumstance. ITS, no apostrophe, is possessive. ITS apostrophe is the contraction of two words. It is. All right, so I hope that helps. Moving on to the next one here. Okay, kind of a similar question. We have two elements to number 23, then and than. Well, is it a comparison or is it time? Than with an A is comparison, and it looks like you knew that. The only difference was the same exact rule. So to reiterate, if an insured artwork is damaged to the point where restoring it would cost more than comparison, the market value of it, right? We use the of thing. Market value of it means you don't use the apostrophe. Market value of it, possessive, not it is. This one means it is. This is the right answer. That's it on this page. Let me see. Yeah, no other ones on this page. Moving to the next one. 27. Huh. Okay. So, let's see. In 2012, one art insurance company donated about 50 total loss pieces to the Institute. And since then, the SAI has added a few pieces and displayed Okay, so this is an interesting question. I think it's about redundancy. It's interesting. And since then, the SAI has added a few pieces and displayed the collection. Okay, so look, collection is redundant with that word collection down here. That's why that's out. To the ones given by the insurance company is right here. Added is the additional. So when you have a redundancy question, all three of the answers will be redundant, even if they're not redundant in the same way. So each of the incorrect answers is redundant. The one that is the simplest is not redundant. So that's only the rule if you know you're working on a redundancy question. So you heard me at the beginning go, because I wasn't quite sure what this question is about. When it's not obvious what the question is about, it's usually either redundancy, comparisons, or misplaced modifiers. So misplaced modifiers is when you have some stuff, a dependent clause, comma, and then the subject doesn't match what was talked about earlier. So my classic example is walking down the street, a piano hit me on the head. It's from old cartoons where this kind of thing would happen. This sentence is a misplaced modifier because walking down the street does not refer to the piano. So the way those sentences work, questions work, is typically this second half of the sentence is underlined, and they want you to change it so you could say, what was walking down the street? It would be I. So the subjects will change. That's a little bit of a tangent, but the reason I bring that up is because most of the styles of questions, it's easy to tell what it's about. The ones where it's not, you only have really three options, and in this case, it was redundancy. So, next one. Let's see. In one study, researchers found that many birds... Okay, the problem here is you would create a full sentence if you don't have the word in whereas. Researchers found that many birds are able to use simple tools such as twigs to search for food. Full sentence. The New Caledonian crow crafts sophisticated hook-shaped tools. There's two full sentences. Using the word as or whereas, WH words are sentence wreckers. So what we do is we make this first part not a full sentence. You can't walk into a room and say, hey, I got to tell you something. Researchers found that whereas many birds are able to use simple tools such as twigs to search for food, you can hear in my cadence that the correct way of saying that sentence is not, or that clause is such that it's not a full sentence. That's what we need because we can't change the second half starting with the New Caledonian Crow. So because we can't change that, we need to adjust the first half of the sentence so that it's not a complete sentence. Every other answer will make a complete sentence. For instance, I got to tell you something. Let's look at your answer. I got to tell you something. Researchers found many birds were able to use simple tools. That's a full sentence. Look, doesn't matter. B is wrong because it has these parentheses around it. It's the exact same sentence as deleting it with just this word indeed sort of grouped in parentheses. And the original was what? Oh, just that. Hey, I gotta tell you something. Researchers found that many birds were able to use simple tools to create or to search for food. Yeah, that's a full sentence. Only one of these creates a situation where you don't have a full sentence. So that's that question. Those WH words is a sentence wrecker. That's a hard question. Next one here. Punctuation. So let's see. I can't tell what's going on here, why this is different than this. They look the same, but that's because it's a bad photocopy. I'm assuming maybe that's a comma. Well, anyways, let's see. After analyzing numerous studies of birds' brain structures, that's not a full sentence. After analyzing, that's not a subject. Subjects start independent clauses. For that reason, you can get rid of B. I'm assuming C is a period. You can get rid of C. By the way, the semicolon and period are wrong for the same reasons here. What D messes up the next full sentence. I can't walk into a room and be like, hey, I got to tell you something. Such that these people concluded something. Of course not. That word messes it up. The right answer, I'm sure this is a comma now. After analyzing numerous studies of bird brain structures. Now look, just to talk about that misplaced modifier idea, this is correctly modifying the subject. Here's the subject, these people. The stuff before it talks about, actions that they took, something that they did. So the dependent clause, if it starts a sentence, has to refer to the subject, which is these two people. I'm not even going to try to say these names, like Bugbear, but I don't know how to say that other name. I can't help myself. Gunturkun. Anyways, this is about what is and is not a full sentence, and that's how you get rid of D. That's how you get rid of B, and it's hard to tell that A is different, but A has, I assume, a comma. So that's number 38. Let's keep going. Next one. Looks like just this number 8 here. This is the same kind of thing. Look, the sentence wrecker, which, does what we want it to do here. In addition, the anodes retained about 13% more ions than do conventional anodes, which meant, so we're continuing on the sentence. WH words mean that the second half of this isn't a full sentence in and of itself. Look, maybe it's easier to get rid of the other answer choices. If you had, I guess I'll deal with the answer that you picked mostly, but I want to say that if you had a comma in C, it would be right. And then you'd have two full sentences. Answer choice D is incorrect because you have a comma, and then you don't have the word and. So you have two sentences separated by a comma. So just to prove that to you, hey, I've got to tell you something. The anodes retained about 30% more ions than do conventional anodes. Cool. Next sentence. Hey, I've got to tell you something. This meant that the batteries could provide more electricity before needing to be recharged than conventional batteries can. Two full sentences. You can't separate two full sentences with a comma. If you're going to use the word and to separate two full sentences, you also need a comma. So you need comma plus the word and. C and D are lacking each of those. The meaning at the beginning will ruin the sentence. The subject of each of these which would be independent clauses, is this. This meant something. That's really the simplest, more generalized version of the sentence. This meant something. This meant, what is it? This meant that the batteries could provide more electricity, blah, blah, blah. I can't walk into a room and be like, hey, I got to tell you something. You're like, what is it? Meaning that the batteries could provide more electricity. You're like, what are you talking about? Right? So the right answer is A, using a sentence record to add information to what already stands as an existing sentence. So that's why A is the best answer here on number 8. Next one, 25. Glad you crossed off the being, almost always wrong. Professional athletes were prohibited from competing. The difference between A and C, this is a tricky one, but the difference between A and C is that, like, this says that, that they were supposed to be prohibited, and that to be prohibited from competing would be correct, actually. If you put from competing, that would be correct. Professional athletes were prohibited from competing, were to be prohibited from competing, not to be prohibited to compete. You don't want to use two infinitives in a row. To be prohibited to compete. Unnecessary. When we add on, we'll add on that ing. So, there's not... this question is not one that you can take too much more than what I just said away from it. ING is one other thing to say. INGs are called helping verbs. Prohibited from competing. It's helping describe the prohibition or the prohibiting. So maybe that helps. Next one. Yeah, possessive. The lives of animals. So the question is it, first of all, you can get rid of your answer choice because the lives of animals. That means animals possess the lives. Cross off D. Nothing possesses the lives. The lives don't possess anything, so that's wrong. And that actually gets rid of B as well. So why is it plural? The animals is a plural group, I suppose. We're talking about at a zoo. When my animal gets stressed, I get stressed, she says. Sweeter think concept. We don't have an option for a singular animal, so we don't even have to worry about it. The only option with singular animal possessive makes a different mistake, which is the lives thing. So that's number 39. Next one. Similar. Do we need possessive? Journalists dedicate to the factual accuracy even as they push stylistic boundaries. It's not boundaries of stylistic, right? So for that reason, you can get rid of the possessive, which you didn't pick anyways. That's good. Would likely have distanced himself from the nonfiction genre's latest product. Okay, so this possessive is the difference. The latest provocateur of the genre. The latest provocateur, the person that provokes, belongs to the genre. So that flip the words, use the word of in between. They would have distanced themselves from the latest provocateur of the nonfiction genre. So that's why it's possessive. The genre possesses, or the provocateur is a part of the genre. Notice the word of there again. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, both of these wrong here. Possessive again. Okay, so the surface of the water. For that reason, the surface of the water. You can get rid of B. Is it plural waters or singular? I don't know yet. It could be either. Let's see. I need to zoom in. It was composed mainly of tiny plastic particles floating, not Plastic particles. It's not floating of particles. Right? So the particles don't own the floating. You can get rid of the apostrophes with particles, which allows me to get rid of the remaining answers. So we can get rid of the particles possession here and here, and we got rid of yours because the water has a surface. So I actually didn't even have to worry about if it was plural waters or not, because that answer had already been eliminated. So we needed possessive water because it's the surface of the water. So yeah, you're right to be focusing on this, and it's not, I won't say it's easy. I don't want to belittle the challenge here, but I also think that you can absolutely beat this. Wait, did I miss one? Was there a second one here? Yeah. I mean, this is a word choice one. There's no rules for these. It's just style. Excluding yourself would mean keeping yourself out of a group or something. Distance yourself from sort of that kind of language. So I try sometimes to answer these questions, but it's really just about the definitions of those words and how they're used. So it's not that useful to spend any time on. Okay, 26. We were talking about this long dash business earlier today. So in 1985, British researchers discovered an abnormally low levels of ozone. So look, this comma would work if there was a comma here. So this information is describing what ozone is. So because we have because we have a long dash here, we need to use a long dash before. We can't use the comma because we have to be consistent. 2 commas, 2 parentheses, or 2 long dashes. So that's that one. Let's see, did we get this other one right? We did, okay. This one, it's effects. Okay, this is that question again. It's that same style. So first of all, effects and effects. Effects are nouns, affects are actions, verbs. The effects, this is a thing. You can replace, any noun with thing. Attention to the ozone problem and public concern about the thing contributed. So because it's a noun, you can get rid of affects. And it's not it is, it's the effects that belong to it, the effects of it. That's why it's answer choice D. And the last one, last page. Let me just make sure I didn't miss something here. I think I got the only one. Yeah, just making sure there wasn't 2 mistakes on that page. Okay, it looks like 2 on this page. Leavitt searched for and cataloged Cepheid variable stars. That's a full sentence. Whose brightness varied? Ooh, tricky. Wow. Okay, so this is the first time I've seen a question in which you have to think about the meaning of the colon and not just whether or not there's a full sentence first. Look, you can get rid of D. I can show you how to get rid of D. That's semicolon. This is a full sentence, so we can't get rid of A on that basis. We can't get rid of C or D or even B on that basis. The fact that it's a full sentence up front doesn't help us with any of those. The question, however, for semicolons is whether or not you have a second full sentence. You need both to be full sentences for the semicolon. Hey, I've got to tell you something. Like, what is it? Whose brightness varied from bright to dim? It sounds like a question. WH words are sentence wreckers, or they turn something into a question, not a statement. So that helps us get rid of C. Even with the word stars in front, it no longer sounds like a question, it just sounds like an incomplete sentence. I've got to tell you something. What is it? Stars whose brightness varied from bright to dim. That's just a thing. That's just a group, right? Stars whose brightness varied. So those are sentence wreckers. You can get rid of C, you can get rid of D. It's really tricky to figure out why A is wrong. I can see it now because look, the comma, and then we have not a full sentence. So for the same reason that D is wrong, B must be right. That is, if this semicolon changes to a comma, it's correct. That's actually how I would be able to pick this one right, even if I didn't know sort of more about colons, about how they're used. But like, if you have two answer choices that are fundamentally opposed to each other, with one of them is probably right. Like, the reason this is wrong is the semicolon. The reason this is right is the comma. To elaborate more, I sort of described why B is right. We have a full sentence, comma, and then an incomplete sentence. That's technically correct. The colon plus the word whose is messing up the meaning of the colon. One good rule about a colon is you can replace it with the word namely. So if you had the word stars after the colon, that would be perfect. Levitt searched for and cataloged Karpfeid variable stars, namely stars whose brightness varied. That would work. Colons can be replaced by the word namely, or for example, or such as. It won't work here. Levitt searched for and cataloged Karpfeid variable stars, namely whose brightness. Doesn't sound right. That's why A is wrong. Okay, and then number 37 here. The order of sentences. Let's see. With these, you typically want to look for the effect of moving sentence 4. So you thought about after sentence 2. The problem with that is the phrase within this group in sentence 3. Levitt focused on, probably, I don't know, I haven't looked at it yet. Levitt focused on Sapphids, I don't know how to say that word, that she suspected to be about the same distance from Earth. That's the group she focused on. Stars that appeared brighter in the telescope had to be more luminous, meaning they gave off more energy. I'm not convinced yet as to why you can't move it after sentence 2. I think we have to think about the meaning of this sentence more carefully. Levitt searched for and cataloged the stars whose brightness varied from bright to dim to bright again over a regular interval, focused on the ones that she suspected to be about the same distance from Earth. Within this group, stars that appeared brighter had to be more luminous because they're the same distance from Earth. That's why they had to be more luminous. And then also the fact that we introduce this idea of more luminous and then elaborate on it in sentence 4. So you may have more questions for me about this question. I'm not going to speculate any further. If you want to talk about 37 here, mark it, sort of give yourself a note to talk about it, or text me, and we'll make sure we talk about it in class. Because that's a little bit more nuanced of a question. But that's all of them that I think that you sent me. And I hope this helps. And please, let this be the start of the conversation about these questions. For anything that you're unclear about, I'm happy to go back and sort of clarify or elaborate on what I'm seeing in those questions. So, hope that helps.